Hi everyone, I don't do intros because intros are lame. Today I'm doing my fall TBR. So it's finally getting close to winter and less fall, and I really don't like that because winter is the worst season ever. I hate winter with passion. With burning suns. I just don't like being cold, and I don't like snow, and anyway. So it has snowed here a couple times, which I don't like. But anyway, so I decided it's about time to do my fall wrap up. So I'm gonna include books that I started in August all the way up until today. Before we get into it, just want to let you know that a lot of these books are audiobooks because that's like all I have time for nowadays. But they still count as books. So yeah. So it looks like I read a lot, and like I kind of did, but I really didn't like read a lot. I kind of just like listened, which is good too. But yeah, let's just get started. So the first book I read way back in the beginning of August was Beastly by Alex Flynn. I read this for a readathon I did with a couple of my friends. It's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but takes place like in New York. And there is a movie adaptation of this book, but the movie and the book are very like different beings. They have a very similar plot line, but other than that, they are not really similar at all. I did pick up the book because I enjoy the movie, but yeah, they don't really match up that much. I did enjoy the book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty easy read to get through, so I did enjoy it. It just wasn't like something super memorable or anything. Next, I read An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. I also read this during the readathon, and I loved it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's about a kid who is a mathematical prodigy, and he's like this whole time he's trying to come up with this equation to like solve. It's like a relationship equation, like who's gonna dump who, and it was so enjoyable, and it's definitely John Green's writing. He definitely has a certain voice when he writes. And one thing that I really loved about this book is, well, first of all, it has like graphs and stuff like that, and because he's a mathematical prodigy, but it also has oh look, there's another equation, but it also has these like footnotes at the bottom, and they're usually hilarious. I laughed so many times while reading this book. It was so much fun. I really want my boyfriend to read it because it's about math and stuff, and he's like a computer science mathy nerd, so I think he'd really enjoy it. The next book I read also during the same readathon was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This was a reread for me. I think I read it like 5 or 6 times, like a lot. So I already knew it was going to be a 5 out of 5 stars. I love S.E. Hinton's writing. I've read, I think, all of her like novels. Like I know she writes like kids books, so I haven't read those ones, but I've read all of her like actual novels. I love this book so much. It's like I discovered it when I was in like 6th grade. I discovered the movie in like 6th grade, and I just like fell in love with the whole like greasers sort of vibe. And then I was like, oh, there's a book. So then I read the book, and yeah, it's been one of my favorite books for a long time. So I always just like go back and reread it whenever I'm feeling like I want to be a greaser again or something. I don't know. So yeah, I decided to reread it while we were doing the readathon. So the next book I read on audio, and it was Fireworks by Katie Cotugno. This book is about 2 friends who, like, the one friend is like really talented in like dancing and singing and stuff, and the other friend's kind of just like, hey, I'm here to be with you and just hang out. But they both actually end up auditioning and getting accepted for this like traveling dance group, singing dancing group something like that. But then like, you know, some things go down, as does every contemporary. But yeah, it was still a pretty good read. I enjoyed it for the most part, and so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was decent, but I honestly don't think I'll remember it in the future. The next book I read was The Demigod Diaries by Rick Riordan. It's a collection of short stories from the Percy Jackson universe. I thought it was pretty good. He has another book that is kind of like this, and I forget what it's called. But I had read that one before. So I was like, oh, I should read this one too, because I love Percy Jackson. So I did give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is still a good rating. I just, honestly, I can't even remember what the short stories were, so obviously they weren't very memorable. But still, they do add some sort of depth to the Percy Jackson universe, which is great. Next, I read You by Caroline Kepnes. This was the first book that I read that was on my fall TBR that I did earlier. The whole story is told in second person. So the stalker dude is like, I watch you go do this thing. It's really crazy because, obviously he's a stalker. He's also just insane. And so you're reading from the point of view of an insane person, and it is a crazy experience. It's quite an adventure. I was reading it on campus, and I got so creeped out at points because I would just be walking around with my headphones in and listening to the audiobook, and then be making sure there's nobody following me. I would go to the library the long way to make sure nobody was following me there. So yeah, definitely did its job on the creep factor, but I still only gave it 3 out of 5 stars, which is still a decent rating. I did enjoy it, but I don't know, there was things about it that didn't really mesh with me, I guess. It was a decent read, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy some of the things that happened in the plot, if that makes sense. The next book I read was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I read this because the Bookmarked Book Club read it as their book of the month for August, I think. It's a sort of beginner's fantasy, and it has to deal with a girl, and she lives in a library, and she works in the library, and some other stuff happens that I don't really remember because I did not like it that much. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I think the main reason I didn't like it is because it's fantasy, and that's a me thing. I just can't do fantasy. I'll read fantasies that I've already read. If I read it in middle school or something, I'll be able to reread it if I want to, no problem. Or read sequels or whatever. But for some reason I just can't get into new fantasy, and I think that's just maybe where I am at this point in my life. Maybe that'll change. I hope it does, because I know there's a lot of fantasy out there that I wish I could read, but I know that I just won't be able to get into it as much, or I just won't like it as much. But I did decide to read it because Bookmarked was doing it, and I like being able to join Bookmarked in their live shows and stuff. I'll link the Bookmarked Instagram down below if you want to check it out. The next book I read was A Trick of the Light by Lois Metzger. This was a reread for me. I reread it on audio, but I have read the physical copy before. It is about a boy who develops an eating disorder, and I love eating disorders, if you didn't know that. It's my weird little thing that I enjoy for some reason, even though it's kind of weird. He gets an eating disorder and just has to deal with his eating disorder. That's what the whole book is about, and I just really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I've read it before, so I knew I liked it, so I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, check it out if you're okay with reading this kind of thing. It is really short, because I'm pretty sure it's a middle grade book. So yeah, it's a quick read, and I really enjoy it. Next, I read My Time Among the Whites by Janine Capo-Crusette. I read this for my autobiographical reading writing class. It is a memoir about Janine. She's Cuban, and it's just about her dealing with, racism and stuff. I really enjoyed it, but recently she came to our campus here to speak about her book, and she has been doing a book tour recently. She went to, I think, a school in Alabama or something, and a lot of people were protesting her book and calling her racist and stuff, and people burned her book and stuff, and that's kind of crazy. So she came here, and we all knew about it, but I wasn't gonna say anything to her because obviously that's probably a really touchy subject. But so I went to a craft talk thing where she kind of explained one of the exercises she does when she's trying to write. And so, she let all of us do that exercise as well, and it was really fun. And at the very end, there was, 5 minutes left, and she's like, hey, is there any questions about the craft talk or anything? And, the first question was, how do you feel about your books being burned? And I just felt so bad for her because, just immediately, you could, see it on her face. Obviously, that's a really hard topic for her to talk about, probably. And, she did answer in a very eloquent way, but you could definitely tell that she felt uncomfortable, and I felt so bad for her. Anyways, but yeah, her book was really good. I really enjoyed it. I read it on ebook, so I don't have a physical copy, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because it was pretty decent, and I recommend you guys read it because it's definitely a really current thing that's going on right now, just with all the news and stuff that's been happening. So next, I reread Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. I did reread it on audio, so I didn't specifically read this copy. I could have if I wanted to, but I just read on audio because I don't have time to read things anymore. It is a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I already knew that because I've read it before. But it is about a girl named Melinda, and she's going through high school, and she kind of suffers from depression. And so, but also there's this really cool tree symbolism throughout this book. And usually I hate symbolism, but it just really works well with me in this book. It's not an overbearing form of symbolism that you have to study in English class, but it's just enough, I think. Yeah, I love this book. I love Laurie Halse Anderson's writing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Also, this copy I got from my friend Lexi, and she annotated it, so there's tabs and stuff, which is really cool, and I'm really glad that she did that for me because I can always go back and look at the things she wrote and stuff. So next, I read Circe by Madeline Miller. I read this also for the Bookmarked Book Club. I think it was their September and October book. And again, it was a kind of fantasy. It has to do with Greek mythology, which I usually really like. I really like Percy Jackson and just Greek mythology in general. But for some reason I just couldn't get into this book. I don't know what it was. I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I just couldn't really get into it as much as I would have hoped. I did read it on audio, so maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, I honestly don't really remember much that happened in it. I just couldn't get into it. The next book I read was When Dimple Met Rishi by Cynthia Menon. This book is about 2 Indian characters, Dimple and Rishi, and their parents arrange marriage them, but Dimple doesn't really want that. But they both go to this same summer camp where they develop an app, and Dimple really wants to win, and Rishi ends up being her partner, and so there's kind of some tension there and a love story and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really fun read. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really good summer read. Especially the cover, it's just so bright and vibrant, and I love it. The next book I read was Smoke by Ellen Hopkins. This is the sequel to Burned. I'm not going to tell you what happens in Smoke because it's kind of spoilers for Burned, but I will tell you what happened in Burned. So, in Burned, it's about this girl. Her family is very Mormon and religious, so she has some issues with her dad, and eventually he kicks her out, and then she has to go live with her aunt on some horse ranch farm, and she meets a boy and they fall in love, and it's really cute. But some tragic things happen in Burned, so Smoke is the follow-up of what happened. Also in Smoke they added the perspective of the main character's younger sister, which I also really like. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of things in there that I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened, And so, yeah, I really liked it. Next, I read Truth and Beauty by Anne Patchett. I also read this for my autobiographical reading and writing class. I loved this book so much. It's weird because I usually don't like memoirs. I don't hate them, but I don't usually pick up memoirs on my own because they're just not a story. But this one definitely reads like a story. Anne Patchett is a novelist, so she's really good at making that plot and developing the characters who are really people. But she does a great job of just writing this book. It's just so good. And you all should read it, definitely. It is about Anne, and she goes to college, and she meets this girl named Lucy, who, when Lucy was younger, she had jaw cancer, and so she had a lot of, radiation, chemotherapy, skin grafts, bone reconstruction surgeries. So she kind of has, some different effects from all of that stuff. So she kind of has low self-esteem, but Anne is right there beside her to help her along the way, and they have such a beautiful friendship, and oh, it was so good. I just loved it so much, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Green Mile by Stephen King. I usually read a Stephen King book around Halloween. Last year I read Carrie, and then I was going to read The Green Mile last year, but I never got around to it. So I decided to read it this year, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Usually I don't think I'm very into like the whole prison environment, but it really worked for me. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I just really liked the storyline, I guess. So it's about this guy who works in a jail and they execute people, but then like some mysterious magicalness things, those aren't words, some mysterious things happen and they have to kind of deal with that. I don't know, there's some stuff going on and it's great, and it's a good Halloween read. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're looking for a Halloween read, even though it's not really Halloween anymore, but like maybe for next year or something. The next book I read was No Such Person by Caroline B. Cooney. This was like the second book I read for my fall TBR, and it took me way too long to read it, like over a month, like a month and a half. Yikes. It took me so long because I didn't really like it that much. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars because like it was really slow. Like all of the plot like happened at the last 50 pages of the book. Like everything else was really like, you know, like when is this gonna get interesting? That's really harsh, but I grabbed it because it's Caroline B. Cooney and I usually really like her books, but this one just didn't click with me. So it's about 2 girls who are siblings and they live on a lake, and then one day there's this guy driving a boat with the skier on the back and an accident happens and the younger sister thinks that the driver did it on purpose. The older sister's like, no, the driver's so cute. I don't know what that was. The older sister like falls in love with the driver guy, and then something happens, a murder happens because it's a murder mystery, and so then the older sister ends up in jail, but we don't know exactly what happened. And yeah, so there's some interesting stuff, especially at the end of the book, but like overall the book was really slow and I didn't really enjoy it that much. So next I read the first 4 books in the Vampire Academy series. I have already read the series. I think this is my 3rd time reading them, but they were all 5 out of 5 stars. I love the Vampire Academy series like so much. Oh my goodness, like the characters are amazing, the storyline is amazing, the whole like concept of like good vampires, medium vampires slash people things, stuff, whatever, and then like the bad vampires and like all the magic that happens and the society and like all of the spiritness that's happening. Oh, it's just so great and I love them. So I decided that I wanted to reread them because I love being in the Vampire Academy universe. So yeah, I read the first 4 books, which are Vampire Academy, Frostbite, Shadow Kiss, and Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. And they were just really good, and if you haven't read them, you definitely should check them out, even though they're kind of old, but still check them out because they're amazing and I love them. Yay. The next book I read was also on my fall TBR, and I loved it. That book was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I absolutely adored this book. It was middle grade, so it was like really fast and easy, but like the plot was just like boom there, everything's happening. This is intense. The characters were great, and it was just amazing, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars if you can't tell. Yeah, it was like quality. I already found out there's a sequel to this book, and I'm really excited to read that one. I'm gonna like put it on my like Christmas wish list or something, so hopefully I'll get it soon. I'm really excited. And also I've heard rumors that there's gonna be a 3rd book, so even more excited. I can't wait. But this is about a girl named Cassidy who can see ghosts, and her best friend actually is a ghost, but her parents write ghost books and then they get a deal to film like actual ghost movie TV show sort of thing, and so they're like, come on, we're going to Scotland, and they go to Scotland, and so there's Scotland vibes in here, and some stuff goes down with ghosts, and it's great, and I loved it. Oh, it was amazing. It was such a wild ride, and it was great. And the next book I read was Pretties by Scott Westerfeld. I'm currently rereading the Ugly series because I want to read Imposters and Shatter City that came out just this past September, but I wanted to reread the books before I like read the new ones, so I just made sure everything was fresh in my mind. But I'm rereading them with my boyfriend, so we read Uglies together, and he read Pretties during that readathon we did in August, and we also have read the graphic novel for Uglies, which is Shay's story, I think it's called. And so we read those together, and then he read Pretties on his own, and then I just reread Pretties myself. So that's where we are now. And so yeah, we're gonna continue with the series until we get to the new books. So I'm really excited. Unfortunately, I didn't like the books as much as I did in like middle school. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Like, it's still good, but there's a lot of things that I noticed that are wrong with it that I didn't notice as a 12-year-old. But anyway, so these books are about a dystopian world where when you turn 16, you get this operation and you become like pretty. And then you move to a new pretty town and you party and you have fun, whatever. But in Uglies, main character Tally meets this girl named Shay, and Shay is like, I don't want to be pretty, and then she runs away to this place called The Smoke where people just like stay ugly forever. And so Tally has to go after her, and there's some stuff that happens. So yeah, Pretties is the sequel to that. It's good, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did in the past. Next, I read P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. I read To All the Boys I Loved Before in June, I think, and I really enjoyed it, but when I read P.S. I Still Love You, I honestly forgot like everything that happened in the first book, so I was like, wait, what's going on? But then like as I got into it, things started like coming back to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I really enjoyed it. It's such a fun, like, cutesy book. I did, however, have like a love triangle, and I'm not really a fan of those, so that was a downfall, but other than that, it was really fun. I do want to read the last book, Thanks for Everything, Laura Jean, but it's not on audiobook, and I read the first 2 on audio, so I kind of want to read the last one on audio, but I think I'm just going to wait until it comes on audio on Libby. So the next book I read was Cutters by Scott Westerfeld, and I also read this with Will. The graphic novels are all from Shay's perspective, so it's like the same story but like different points of view. My boyfriend really likes the art style that is in these books, and I mean, it was decent. I gave it 3 stars because like I gave Pretties 3 stars, and this did add some stuff to the story that like you didn't know while reading Pretties. So like that was kind of interesting to see like the things that are going on outside of Tally's perspective. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth a read if you're reading the Ugly series. I think you should definitely check the graphic novels out as well. And the next book I read was Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, and this is also for my autobiographical reading and writing class. It is a graphic memoir, so again, another graphic novel, and it's about a girl who lives in Iran, and there's like the war going on in Iran, so it's like her living through the war and like what happens in her life. And I thought it was alright. I gave it 3 stars, mostly because I don't really understand wars, I guess. I don't know, like, they don't really make sense to me. So, like, when they're like, oh, there's, like, fighter jets and bombs and stuff, and I don't know what it is. They just, and like, there was lots of, like, cultural things that went on in this book that, like, I didn't get, because obviously I'm not from Iran. I don't understand their culture. Maybe if I, like, researched it a bit more, it would make more sense to me. Either way, it was still a decent story. So, yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And the last book I just finished today, actually, and that book is The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. And I'm so glad that I'm finally done because I started this book in like August. But yeah, so I finished it and it's great. I'm really excited about it. But this is a poetry book, and it's about like a princess and the damsel and the queen, and it's like all a metaphor for things that happen in life, and I'm not going to tell you what the metaphor is because I want you to figure it out yourself. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'd probably read it again in the future. It was really enjoyable. I think I might like annotate it at some point. I'm not sure. But yeah, so those are all the books I read in fall. Man, it felt like a lot. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Unfortunately, it's going to be a pain to edit because I had to keep stopping my camera because the heat would turn on and the heat's really loud, and so I had to like keep stopping and then starting it again, and then like for a while my camera just stopped recording completely, and so I had to re-record half of it. It was a nightmare, and I'm glad I'm finally done recording it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe down below and hit that bell icon to make sure you get notified when I post. I post videos every Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time, so you can expect to see more from me. Also, if you want to, you can follow me on my social media. My Instagram is Butterflies on My Bookshelf, the same as my channel name, but with periods in between the words. And then I also have a Goodreads link down below if you want to check out my Goodreads as well and see all of the books that I've read this whole year. I think I'm at like 93 or something. It's insane. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Fireworks by Katie Katugno. Katie Katugno. I got there. It's insane. The heat keeps turning on in my dorm, and it's like the loudest thing ever. You could probably hear it. And so I have to like keep pausing my filming, and this is like the 4th time it's kicked on, and I've only talked about like 4 books. This is really annoying. Are you kidding me right now? That moment when your phone is recording, but then it's actually not recording, and so you film your whole video, and then you realize that you didn't film it, so you have to go back and film it, and then right as you start filming, the heat kicks on, and you have to stop because it's too loud. Okay, sir, will you please return to your assigned seat? Thank you.